Hi there. Hello. Hello. Hi, I can't pronounce that. Absurd. Jamie Lee. Hi, hi. Hi, Minneapolis. Hi, Louise. Hi, Floriana. Michelle Robinson, you just joined.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome. Oh, I was supposed to have my little list here. I got a list. I'm going to check it twice. Hi, Josephine Boy. Just me? Wait, that's good. Okay. Hi. Hello. Les Tempera. Hi, I can't pronounce that. I can't actually read that. Hello. Morning, Paris. Hi. Yes. Hi. Ciao. From Bologna, I think. I think I got that right. Hi, Christy Powell from Nebraska. Thank you again, Christy Powell. Hello. It's 12:01. Ashwin 1609 has joined. Thank you, Ashwin 1609, because we were waiting. A shout out from gorgeous Laguna Beach. I know, it's like that. It's like that scene in La La Land where they go. It's winter, it's fall, it's spring, and every single season it's just sun. So happy Laguna Beach. We are wherever you are in the world right now, whether it's nighttime or daytime or whatever. We have sun here in Southern California because by law we have to. Edinburgh, Scotland. Hi, Edinburgh again. Hi. I don't imagine maybe it's sunny. What is it? 12:02, so it's 8:02 your time. I hope you have a nice, warm, cozy place to sit and noodle here for a while. Hello, finally summer in Chicago. Yeah, finally. Mark. Gosh. I'm, by the way, shaving. Yeah, that's going to happen at some point. Clearly not today, sadly. Gorgeous day in Del Mar, California. Yes, it is. Yes, and your beaches are open. I know, Del Mar. Hey, wait a minute. Where's that? Hertfordshire. I was born in Hertfordshire, UK. I was born in... Mom, you're going to remind me. I was born in High Wycombe, Hertfordshire. Grew up in Hertfordshire. Love Hertfordshire. Bologna, hello, from Bologna. Hello, Bologna. I hope you're safe, warm, and well taken care of on a Friday night. Galveston, Texas. Gotta love. Hello from Paris. I wish I was there. How is Paris? I want Paris in the springtime. Don't we all love Paris in the springtime? Yes, we all love Paris in the springtime. Okay, it's 12:03, so I feel we should dive in. Thank you so much for coming to our Friday Live. We are focused today on teams, so let's just have a little show of hands maybe of how many team leaders have we got on the call at the moment? How many team leaders? Show of hearts. There are no show of hands. Yes, show of hands. Just wave your hands in front of your own, just to know whether we got team leaders and then team members. If you got if you got some of your team members, a lot of team leaders, and hopefully some team members on the line as well. Yes, so before we dive into questions, I wanted to share just a couple of quick things in terms of teams. So I run the ADP Research Institute. We did this global study a couple of, 18 months ago now, where we asked simply, how much of your work do you do in teams? 84% of people do most of their work on teams. 84% of people, no matter what the industry, no matter what country, they do their work, lots of hearts. Yeah, teams. We do almost all of our work on teams. 75% of the 84% do their work on more than one team. And then 64% of the 75% say that the teams that they're working on aren't always reflected on the organizational chart. So not only do we do most of our work on teams, but we do work on more than one teams, and those teams sort of come together and break apart and come together and break apart. We do so much of our work on dynamic teams, project teams, cross-functional teams. Just teams are, as I said a couple of weeks ago, like the very first thought about who we are as humans is who we are as humans on a team. Teams are everything. It is weird. We don't teach our children how to do teams. We put them in sports sometimes, but we don't really teach our 13-year-olds what is a team? How do you join one? How do you build one? So although the entire human condition is mediated through teams, a family is a team, a tribe is a team, we don't really talk very detailedly about how the heck do you build really engaging, collaborative, high-performing teams. And of course now today we don't even see the team. Like virtual is everything right now, isn't it? How long will that last? We don't know. But there's going to be more virtual than less virtual, isn't there? So for those of you that are running teams and those of you that are on teams, it becomes all the more important, doesn't it, to know how do we actually build teams together when we don't just bump into one another by the water cooler. Quick thing to share on this. I used to do a lot of work with Hilton hotels, and particularly the Hampton brand. And as part of the work that we used to do, we would interview really, really, really good team leaders to discover what do they do differently. As you know, if you've read First Break All the Rules, which was the first book I wrote, it was all about studying excellence. What does excellence look like? So as part of that ongoing research, we studied high-performing team leaders. One of them was called, and I'll mention her name. Her name was Diana Bernardo. She ran the Hampton Inn, actually, in Ephrata, Pennsylvania. And was on the phone with her talking about, why do you have such high levels of occupancy? Why is your team willing to walk through walls for you? Why do your guests love you so much? And I'm on the phone doing the interview, and she just goes, well, it's all about the mascot. And I'm like, I'm sorry? She goes, yeah, it's all about the mascot. Every single team should have a mascot. And I don't know if you're in Bologna, I don't know if you know what mascot is. A mascot is like a nickname or it's the talisman for the team. So I'm like, mascot. And she goes, yeah, well, we have a mascot. I'm like, what's your mascot? And she goes, we're the Turtles. We're the Ephrata, Pennsylvania Turtles. And I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, it's so great. If you're the employee of the month, you're not the employee of the month, you're the turtle of the month. And you get to take home like a fluffy turtle. And if you really do something incredibly well, we give you this little fluffy turtle to take home with you. And you should see my office, Marcus. It's filled with pictures of turtles everywhere. And I'm like, why? And she's like, guys, turtles. You know, a turtle, Marcus, you don't make any progress as a turtle unless you stick your neck out of your shell. We're the turtles. We're the Ephrata, Pennsylvania Turtles. And you make progress when you stick your neck out of the shell. And everybody should have a mascot. The guys down the road, they're the bees. They're the bees because they all work together. And so I'm listening to her and I'm going, okay, yeah, does every team need a mascot? I don't know. Maybe your team should have a mascot. But here's a thought for you as team leaders in this virtual world. Remember last week I said that the reason or the way you build teams is you meet those two most basic human needs. Make me feel part of something bigger than me, and then make me feel that I'm special. Remember that? Make me feel that you know what we all share, and then make me know that you think I'm the most beautiful, powerful member of this team. Well, in terms of that first one, make people know what they all share. There is something to be said for mascots. There's something to be said. We've just finished, yay us, by the way. We've just finished the 7th season of Scandal, and good old Olivia Pope on Scandal, she named her team the Gladiators. And gladiators go off a cliff together. So if you want to build a virtual team today, there is something to be said. If you've got the courage for it to go, we are the what? You know, the armed forces do this pretty well. It's like, we are the Rangers. We are the Delta Force. We are the Screaming Eagles. There's something to be said for naming who we are. Like, what do we all share? My lovely friend, Tracy Hutton, who now runs leadership and team development at Lululemon, she always used to say, and this is something you might want to think about for your team, the team has a voice. Your team has a personality, a character, a voice. So if you're thinking about your team, it's like if you've got 10 people on your team, the 11th person on the team is the team itself. What would the team say to that idea? What would the team say to that suggestion? What is each person's responsibility to the team? The team itself has a voice. What would it say? There's a certain loveliness around that. So just to kick us off, we do so much of our life through teams and helping people to know that our team is something, someone even that we serve. That's kind of lovely to frame for your people wherever they are in the world. One last thing on teams, and then we'll take a couple of questions here, and I'll dive into yours. Peter Drucker, the most eminent probably management theorist of the last 100 years, said there are 3 kinds of teams. You probably should know, and he's not right, there are a million kinds of teams. But there are 3 very distinct kind of teams, and you should probably know which one of the 3 yours is.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, but this is such a good one, and I'm interested in this.
Yes. Hold on for the 3 kinds of teams.
Hold on. Sorry, but this, I want her name, but anyway, how do you implement that whole naming thing, like with an older group, so that they don't feel like it feels childish?
Okay, so the question was, how do you implement the whole naming mascot thing with an older team? Ariel. Hi, Ariel. How do you do that without it feeling childish? Well, I tell you what, if you feel like it's childish, don't do it. When we did Diana Bernardo on StandOut, she was a stimulator. So for her, it worked. Now, I'm a stimulator. I have a couple of teams. I don't do this, as those on my team know. I don't do that. I can't pull it off. It's not authentic to me. So Ariel, if it's not authentic to you, don't try to pull it off. It's got to come out of you as a manifestation of what feels good to you. And for Diana Bernardo, she was like, we're the turtles. And like every part of her DNA went, turtles. And she had 65-year-old people, 18-year-old people, everybody in between. But because it was so authentic to her, people were like, I'll sign up for that. Now, Olivia Pope on TV, we're the gladiators. I mean, come on. I mean, that's ridiculous, right?
So cool.
Except it isn't. It's so cool. If she looks you in the eye with her eyes the way she's got them, and she just goes, you are a gladiator. You want to join the gladiators? We go off a cliff with each other. If you, as a leader, if you believe it in your DNA, we will hook onto it. But, Ariel, if you don't feel it, don't try that. I only brought up the mascot idea because it symbolized that the team has a voice. The team has a personality. The team has a need. And so...
Aaron Blodgett says it's more about team identity.
Yeah, Aaron. Yeah, hey, Aaron. Team identity is right. But in terms of like mascotting it, don't mascot if you don't feel it. If you don't feel it in here, then people won't believe it and you'll come across as a gimmick. It will come across as a gimmick and you'll lose trust. So think about it for yourself. Does it feel real to you? In which case, do it. By the way, I don't, right? Okay, thank you.
You should.
I should. No shoulds. In all these sessions, I'm not going to say should. There's no shoulding. We need to quit shoulding. Shoulding's a bad word, isn't it? It's like I should do what hooks people onto me. Marcus, right now, I'm going to share with you what we know about teams. But there's no shoulding. You got to understand who you are as a leader, who you are as a team member, and then you got to bring your best of yourself. No one's going to tell you what you should do. Quit shoulding. If you ever hear me shoulding, then on this thing here, call me on it. I was going to tell you these 3 kinds of teams, right? 3 kinds of teams. Then this is kind of interesting. You need to know which one you are, kind of, because they're different. And I'm going to use baseball as an analogy here. For those of you that don't know baseball, sorry, I'll have to explain it to you. But Peter Drucker said there's 3 kinds of teams. Baseball, football, American football. Sorry, in Bologna, or Paris, or Edinburgh. Baseball, American football. Why do we call it football? Because you throw it. Anyway, football and basketball. And Peter Drucker's idea here was, with basketball, there are a few set plays, but you're all playing all the roles all the time, all together. Some teams do what they do at the same time, relying on each other in an improvisational way all the time. Some teams are like that, where you are working together, making decisions together, collaborating together all the time at the same time. American football, if you don't know this, there are set plays that are called, and then we run the play, and everybody does it at the same time, but people have preset roles. And in fact, the rules of American football are if you go outside of your role, very often you'll be called for a penalty. Like a lineman can't catch the ball if they've gone downfield too far. So some teams are teams where everybody has a set role, and then someone calls the play and we run the play and everyone plays their role at the same time. The third kind of team is baseball. For those of you that don't know baseball, it's like cricket. For those of you who don't know cricket, you should. There's a should right there. It's a Brookman rule. Baseball or cricket, when you come up to bat, you come up one after the other after the other. There is no team, if you like, at the same time. You go up and try to swing the bat one after another in series. Some teams are like that in business and in life, where you don't do your things at the same time. One person hands it off to another person, hands it off to another person, hands it off to another person. So think, first of all, before you think about all these sophisticated questions that you sent us about teams, think about what kind of team you've got. Is it a baseball team where it's one person handing off to another? Is it football where everyone has preset roles and your job as a team member is to know your bloody role really well, play it really well? Your job as a team leader is to define who's in which role. Or are you playing basketball where basically there's some sort of role-ishness, but you improvise all the time together? So ask them. I don't know how I would get you to. Give me hearts if you're a basketball team. Oh, that's right. You could write. Sorry. It's been a long week. You could write, maybe. You could tell us what kind of team you're on. I love basketball. Yeah, okay. Basketball. Yeah, a lot of teams in business are basketball. Families. What are families? Anyway, know which team you're on. Why? Why am I even bringing this up? Because it helps you as a team leader bring clarity to your team members. Right? It helps you tell them what kind of team we're on. The hardest team, I would suggest, I do not know this, I am suggesting this, the hardest team to run, the hardest team to build a team around is a baseball team, where basically I'm just handing it off to the next person, because then you almost don't feel as though you need the next person. So your challenge and maybe we could do this on a future session, what are the challenges for each different kind of team? I would say, just as a general comment, hardest team to run, hardest team to get people to feel like they're part of a team is a baseball team, because you don't actually do it all together. Okay, now, I've said this for 2 weeks, and I am so sorry to Jennifer Betsistas. I'm maybe not saying that right, but she's been asking a question for the last 2 weeks. I've said I would get to it, and I never did. So here's her question about teams and about... What? Hi, Paul Cooper. Hi, thanks for coming. Well, it's 12:15, so just out of bed, are we? Just out of bed? Jolly good. So Jennifer says, it's time to set yearly goals. The activity is one that I am completely unable to bypass. How do I make this better? Everyone hates yearly goals. Everyone hates yearly performance reviews. How do I do yearly goals for our team? Okay. So I'm going to try and be concise on this. Some of you in business, you've got to set goals because the company demands that you set goals. You might even have a piece of software that demands that you enter in your goals and will nudge you and keep nudging you if you haven't entered in your goals. If you have a piece of software like that, or if you work in a company like that, then enter in your goals. Put your goals in. But here's a piece of data for you. Less than 4% of people actually go in and look at their goals anytime during the year. So as a team leader, less than 4% of people, once they put in their goals, actually go back. Let's just have some hearts if you've actually working in a company where you have to set yearly goals. How many of you have to set, give me hearts, if you have to set yearly goals, just so I know whether or not I'm speaking to a big crowd of us here. If you have to set yearly goals, then you got to do it because, yeah, okay, a lot of us are setting yearly goals. Do it because otherwise you're going to get bugged by it. But here's the thing you should know, and you should tell your team too. No one goes back in and looks at them. We just don't. We've got data on it, tons and tons and tons of data. We don't go back in and look at our yearly goals, which is weird, right? Because the world that you set your goals in January, and this year couldn't be a better example of that, could it? The goals that you set in January become irrelevant by the third week of February. I'll rephrase that. They become irrelevant by the third week of January. So really, if we were trying to use goals to get people to stay focused and aligned during the year, we should all be going back in, if you like, and checking our goals and tweaking our goals to fit the changing reality that we face. But people don't do that. We don't do that. So you as a team leader, you need to remember that the goals that we set at the beginning of the year are an exercise that you might have to go through, but they don't actually do very much in terms of alignment or in terms of performance. Please don't rely on them. They become irrelevant so fast. Instead, we talked about this 2 weeks ago maybe, instead you've got to be checking in with your people at least once every 11 days. Once every 11 days, what are you working on this week? How can I help? What are you prioritizing this week? How can I help? That's your regimen if you want more performance. So I'm not suggesting you don't put the yearly goals in, but I'm afraid they are like a parallel. Do you know what Kabuki is? Kabuki is the art of shadow puppets. It's like moving without actually engaging with the real world. That's what goals are. If you want to set good goals, like what's a good goal? You've heard of SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time-bound, or management by objectives, or KPIs. That's a good one recently, isn't it? How many of you, give me some hearts if you heard of KPIs, key performance indicators. KPIs, right? All of that is fine, but sort of irrelevant. The only criteria for a good goal is the person sets it themselves. Anything that is imposed upon them from on high, like a cascaded goal, that's an ungoal. Goals are manifestations of values. Goals are manifestations of values.
Are or should be?
Are. The only reason they exist as things is that there's no shoulding.
But like normally a goal is not that.
No, normally in companies, goals aren't that. Goals are ways for the company to try to get people to align or to evaluate people at the end of the year. Oh, please, if you're a team leader, don't evaluate people on the number of goals they achieved at the end of the year. Why? Because if somebody sets 5 goals to me and I hit 5 of them, and somebody sets 5 goals to Michelle and she hits 3 of them, am I better than her?
Yes.
No, I'm not. It all depends upon the calibration of the goals. If my goals are way easier than hers, if every one of my goals is make a cup of tea, and one of her goals is land on Mars, obviously I'm joking, but there are different levels of difficulty. You cannot use goal attainment and the percentage of goal attainment as a way to evaluate people. You can't. Don't do it. Goals are useful as a way to help a person to make manifest, make real the stuff that they value. So a goal is only useful if the person says it themselves. Sorry, but that's just the way it is. So as a team leader, you got to talk to people about what their goals are. Maybe like Diana Bernardo, talk about the turtles. We're the turtles. We're all about being turtles. Now, Michelle, you're on the turtle team. What goals do you want to set? What do you want to set? What do you want to set? Let her speak. I mean, if you want more performance from her, let her speak. And then I'm sorry, but you're going to be recalibrating those goals every 3 weeks. Every 4 weeks.
Leading Edge BCC.
Yeah.
Why is this so well known, but companies rarely live by the knowledge?
Why is it so well known? So this was who?
Leading Edge.
Leading Edge. Okay, why is it so well known that goals people don't go back? Well, you know what? People don't know the data, by the way. If you wanted to get armor from this, take this data back. Less than 4% of people go back in and check their goals anytime during the year. One of the benefits of these human capital management software things is that we can actually see what people go back and do. People don't go back in and look at their goals. If you have kids, you know this. You can set whatever goals you want for your kids at the beginning of the year.
Beginning of the week.
Beginning of the week even. 3 weeks in, it's changed. It's like the data is useful here. Why are we spending all this time doing all these company goals and cascading the goals down? And why deep down do we know it's irrelevant? Well, we know it's irrelevant because we don't really follow them. But the data is important. Less than 4% of people go back in and check their goals. So listen, if we imagine that the world that we meet in December is the same world that we meet in January, then I guess God bless, your goals are valuable. But if we think that the world changes, the reality changes during the year, then something that we don't even look at, or 96% of us don't look at all, I'm so sorry, they're just not useful. And by the way, give me some hearts if any of you have ever gone back in at the end of the year and put your goals in right at the end of the year that were just stretchy enough or slacky enough so that you could hit enough of them, but they weren't. Have you ever gone back in at the end of the year? Have you ever had your team members go in at the end of the year and sort of put their goals in? So, oh, look, I got them. We do that, right? We do that. Like, there's a few of you admitting that. A lot of it, goals are like almost looking in the rear view mirror. It's the weirdest thing.
Can you just shout out to Job Talents?
Hi, Job Talent. Hi, Job Talents.
What
yes.
should then be the goal of the team?
Well, so the question was, what should then be the goal of the team? Hi, yeah, we've all done that thing, right? Well, this goes back to what was last week. What's the point of a team? The point of a team is to get people together to go take a hill. We are going to knock off Andy Garcia's casino in Vegas, says George Clooney to Brad Pitt, to Matt Damon. That's what we're going to do. Now look, if 84% of us work on teams and 75% of us work on more than one team, the challenge for a team leader is to be super vivid about not what box in the org chart we're in, but we've got to be super vivid about why the heck are we putting this team together? It's like the Blues Brothers thing of why are we putting the band back together? Why? I don't mean in a Simon Sinek why way, although that's good to kind of get to our why. I mean, like, what hill are we taking? We are putting these differently talented people together to do what? That's super important to do. Now, that means that overall, the team can have a vivid, hopefully very vivid, and there may be some data in the vividness. There may be some stories in the vividness. There may be some clients and their experience in the vividness. But paint a picture of the vividness of what hill we're taking. That's what the best team leaders have got to do. Otherwise, why do we have a team? It's like that first team back in the wall of the Indonesian cave. The point of the team was we got to go get some food for the tribe. Pretty straightforward. So as a team leader,
sorry.
What?
Schumann coaching. I put goals at the beginning. I put in goals at the beginning that I'm already almost done with, so I know they will all get done.
Yeah. Who doesn't do that? Who doesn't put in goals at the end of the year that are almost finished so you know they're going to get done?
Sorry.
Oh, look, I'm 92% done with my goals. Okay,
You
so
did the whole thing on goals, obviously. And
we could do the whole thing on goals. By the way, evaluation. How do you evaluate people? If you're not going to evaluate them on the fact that they've made 5 cups of tea versus somebody else who didn't land on Mars, how do we evaluate? That's a whole other ballgame. There was a couple of questions, and I'm so apologetic that I didn't get to them last week, about how do you use the StandOut assessment for recruitment. I'll just take one from Francesco from Bologna, who said, I'd like to know what to do if we're thinking that any specific role on the team requires a specific skill set or a specific standout role. Can we use the StandOut assessment to recruit people? So let me be super clear. And then there was a kind of connected question about what happened. Oh yeah, this is from Nina, Ninatia on Instagram. I'm not pronouncing that right. I didn't even pronounce it. I just spelled it. Ninatia. Anyway, what if someone's strengths don't match their role? How best do you help them? So those two questions are connected. The point of StandOut, just like the point of Strengthsfinder, was not to use it as a selection tool. I spent my first 10 years at Gallup building psychometric selection tools to select people whose strengths match their role. You can do that, but what's sort of interesting is after 10 years of research, building instruments, pre-employment selection instruments, to select candidates who had the same profile of people who excelled as a nurse, as a teacher, as a salesperson, as a lawyer. What you find is that you can increase your subsequent performance success rate less than between 3 and 5%. This is after meta-analytic studies of like looking, 3 to 5% in terms of, which means, I guess you can up it a little bit, but after all this research, what I came away with is going, gosh, the best in any specific job don't all share exactly the same qualities. If that's true, then we really shouldn't be trying to build instruments that select people who are all the same as one another. What that means is that if you're going to have a strength assessment, like a StandOut, like a Strengthsfinder, use it for information gathering only. Don't use it as a decision maker. You should never say, if you don't have influencer and advisor, you can't be a salesperson. That is measurably not true. I know it's not true because we went and studied hundreds and thousands of really, really good salespeople, and they didn't all have the same profile. Some of them sold because they had creator stimulator. Some of them sold because they had provider teacher. Some of them sold because they had influencer stimulator, influencer advisor. The point of StandOut isn't to bless you. You have it. You don't have it. That's not the point. The point, if you're a team leader, is to go, whatever job I'm throwing you into, how will you do it? What's your way of getting this done? How will you do it? So it's an information provider. Do I give people StandOut before they join the team? My teams, yes. Why? Well, because as I said last week, always be recruiting, always be recruiting. I see you, I love you, we need you. I can't answer the I see you, I love you, we need you if I can't see you. And one of the greatest values that StandOut has is to be able to accelerate your ability to see someone. Now, all caveats aside, that doesn't mean that these are labels. As I've said, I want to keep saying it again and again, these are doorways into your curiosity about the human. But if somebody like Michelle has connector stimulator, that is different than advisor equalizer.
So
I need to know that before I bring her on board, because I gotta know why I'm saying we need her on the team.
So do you have a point of, so he's just asking a couple of people kind of in this vein, how do you select? Do you suggest selecting on professional skills, on values? Do you have any point of view on
so the question is then, how do you select for a team? Oh my, well that is we could do a whole thing on selection. I don't want to derail. Well, that's a longer conversation, but the best thing to do with selection is, yes, I think you can use some assessments like StandOut, like Strengthsfinder as information providers. Second, if you want to know how to select, you ask a few open-ended questions and you shut up. Your selection interviews should be 90% them talking, 10% you. You should ask as fewer questions as possible. I know that sounds really weird. You should ask as fewer questions as possible, because every time you ask a question, you give away to the person what you're trying to hear. You ask a very few open-ended questions, which we could talk about probably at another time, but a very few open-ended questions, and then you shut up. And then whatever they say, you believe. You're not selecting on skills, because skills you can change about a person. So that's weird, right? Why would you select on something that you can change? The only reason you ask about skills is because it shows a person's predisposition. It shows a person's interest. But basically, the best way to select, you ask a few open-ended questions and you shut up. Let's table that and we'll come back. For those of you that really want to know about that, there's a way to select with much greater precision and power.
Selection, and a bunch of people are saying a session on evaluating.
Oh, a session on evaluating people.
So
okay.
I'll just take
So my team, Michelle, Christy, Meredith, Kate, we're taking notes of all of the.
There's a whole blog post that you have on
selection.
On selection.
Oh,
stuff.
Apparently I have a whole. I think it was way back when, though, right? Was it a while ago?
I don't know. Meredith just said.
Okay, Meredith. Thank you, Meredith. There's a blog post on selection, so maybe we'll try and figure out a way to get that to you. The question here also related to a similar question: what happens if someone's strength doesn't match their role? Well, that's kind of interesting, because if with StandOut will never tell you that. StandOut won't tell you that the perfect role for strengths for a nurse are what? Provider connector? No. We've interviewed hundreds of thousands of nurses. They've all got really different profiles. And by the way, the nurses that are on the prenatal shift are really different than the nurses, you probably noticed this if you've ever had a child, very different than the nurses on a postnatal shift. So the way in which you do nursing is different according to the human. Your challenge as a team leader is to know what that is and then figure out best ways to cultivate it. The thing I would say is, if you do love it, loathe it with a person, if you give them a blank pad and say, look, go take the blank pad around for a week, draw the line down the middle, put loved it on the top of one column, loathed it at the top of the other, and then come back to me with the activities of love and activities of loathe. If you end up with a person who's got no activities, none, in the loved it, well, that is a very good starting place for a conversation. The person isn't broken, but the person may well have been put into situations or positions where an awful lot of the activities drain the living daylights out of them. At which point, you have to have a conversation with them. One of the other questions we had, by the way, is effective leadership balancing focus on work, focus on the relationship? What's the balance? Focus on the work, focus on the relationship. Well, it's like if someone comes back with loved it blank, loathed it filled with stuff, then what's your relationship responsibility? Because there really is no dichotomy between a focus on the relationship and the focus on the work. Because if a person comes back and no activities on the job are on their loved it list, none, then what's your responsibility in terms of your relationship to them? Your responsibility in a relationship is to help the person be the biggest version of them possible, right? Well, if the biggest version of them possible is your responsibility and no activities, none, it's not like one, but nothing, then your responsibility in terms of your relationship is to say to them, listen, this job, you're a beautiful human, but this job is the wrong job for you. I love you. You're perfect. And I've got you in the wrong slot. It's not your fault. Maybe it's not even my fault, but it is what it is. And so we better deal with the fact that every day you come into work and you are having to survive your job. Well, we know if you're going to take your love seriously, we know there are some people, all of us, who have activities that drain us for no good reason, but they just do. If you've got yourself in a job where almost all the activities drain you, then your boss and you should have a really meaty conversation about how to navigate, maneuver your job. That's not always easy, but we do know from data, this is US data, 73% of people here in the US say they have the freedom to modify their job to fit their strengths better. 73%. So I guess there's like 25, 26, 27% of us that go, I'm just in the wrong job and I can't move. But most of us, it's kind of good to have that data, right? Most of us think we have freedom to maneuver our job to fit our strengths better. Now look, somebody else asked this question. What happens if my boss doesn't care? What happens if my boss just didn't care about me? My team leader just doesn't care about me, clearly doesn't care about me. Then I'm sorry. There is not much you or I can do about that. A team leader is a person that calls us the turtles. And if she who doesn't call us the turtles, nonetheless deeply, deeply believes that each person has something valuable they're bringing to this team and cares about them. Even cares about them to the point where you go, tough love, I love you, you're fired, I still love you. But the core is love. If you've got a team leader that doesn't care about you enough to look or see you for who you are, I don't mean that they pat you on the head and they're just nice. But they see you and they care about you. If you've got a leader that genuinely doesn't, they distrust people, they feel suspicious of people, then I'm sorry, you have to, sometimes the best way to fix a really bad relationship is to get out of it. And I know during this time, that is not an easy thing for me to say. I am not suggesting that's easy. But please, for those of you that feel that way, consider the best way sometimes to fix a bad relationship is to get out of it. Some team leaders have been promoted to team leaders because they were good individual performers, but they don't actually deeply want to be responsible for other people. One of the most powerful, right? Many of you felt that. There are some leaders, listen, and if you're one of them, listen to this. When we looked to find the best question to pick if you want to be or should be a team leader or not, the simplest question, and this is for those of you who run teams of teams and are wanting to select team leaders, the simplest question you can ask to see whether or not somebody should be a team leader is this one. Would you rather do a job yourself or be responsible for other people's work?
Do a job myself.
Would you rather do a job yourself or be responsible for other people's work? If somebody top of mind says do a job myself, that doesn't mean they shouldn't be a team leader. It does mean Pay attention to what they said, because they want deeply to own their own stuff, which is okay. But don't imagine they're going to get joy and a thrill and fulfillment from giving choice and responsibility and discretion away. Now you might say, well, Marcus, that's not a growth mindset. Some people can grow in from one to the other. Okay, maybe, but from the data that we have, there are some predispositions, and some people, they are best when they are responsible for them, maybe a couple of other people's work.
Can I ask this one? It's so good. En route.
Yeah.
En route life.
En route life 2018. Yeah.
How do you still ensure the work gets done if the person doesn't have a lot of activities in the loved it column? Like, I think that's a big thing for.
How do you still make sure that the work gets done if the person doesn't have a lot of activities in the loved it column? Well, there's a short-term answer and a long-term answer. The short-term answer is you say to your people, and as a team leader, you shouldn't be afraid to say to your people, this team is it's about knocking off Andy Garcia's casino. Hey, Matt Damon, I don't care if you don't love pickpocketing. We need you to go pickpocket that badge. Otherwise, the whole thing falls apart. Short-term, Matt, that's what you got to do. Long-term, if Matt says, I don't like my life, I don't like who I am, I don't like pickpocketing, then you as a team leader need to listen to that. And then you would say to a person, can we gradually tilt the world, tweak your job so that we get more activities in your job? And remember the Mayo Clinic research that said it only has to be 20% of your job doing activities you love. Hey, Matt Damon, can we tweak your job just a wee bit so that you're filling your weeks with slightly more activities that invigorate you? We don't have to do it tomorrow. In fact, you know what? I'm going to say to you, Matt, I'm going to say, could you just suck it up right now? Suck it up. Because we just need to get stuff done. That's so fine. Every really, really, really good team leader I've ever interviewed has said some version of that. But they know that it's a stopgap. They know that people have to move through life and get strength from the way in which they move through life. And that each person draws strength differently from life. You can't ignore that. You can't pretend it isn't real. It is real. So we have to then help Matt Damon begin to, tilt his job a wee bit toward those activities that he loves. Now, if he can't do that, or if he won't do that with you, if he's checked out. One of you asked, what happens if you've got a remote worker who doesn't want to get involved in the team? They've checked out. Sometimes people get to a point where they've checked out. And your job as a team leader is to provide them one opportunity to say, suck it up, and do it for right now, and then we'll work together. And then if they don't work with you then you give them one other chance. And then you say, you know what, the best way to solve this relationship is to get out of it. You cannot be responsible for somebody else's mindset. You can't. I know we've got a couple other questions. One thing I absolutely want to address, gender and race. Gender and race. Some of you have asked whether or not some of these standout roles are gender related. Oh, there are more women providers and there are more male advisors. Sorry, dog's barking. The short answer to that question is, there's a long answer, but the short answer to that question is no. None of these strengths roles are gender dependent. None of them are race dependent. None of them are nationality dependent. That doesn't mean that we don't have some deep, pre-existing, gender-related stereotypes. Some of you might even suffer from gender stereotype bias, where you go, I don't know, men are more competitive and women are more empathetic. It's the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing, right? I'm sorry, the data on this is unequivocal. There are more variations within genders than between genders. And if you don't believe that, be a girl with 3 sisters, or be a boy with 3 brothers. In the same family, same genes, huge differences within the genders. So when you hear gender generalizations, be super critical thinkers. Be a critical thinker and go, where's the data on that? Where's the data on that? Really? All women are like this, all men are like that? Really? Really? Oh, women's leadership style is like this, and men's leadership style is like... Really? Because I could show you 400 women and 400 different ways of leading. And we know, luckily, I'm so lucky, I've actually got the data that can show that in StandOut, there are no male strengths roles versus women's strengths roles. I'm not saying that society doesn't put pressure on women and men to behave in a certain way. That does happen, and we sort of have to deal with that. And it would be foolish to say that there's obviously no biological differences between men and women, because big surprise, there are some biological differences. But the best way to know whether or not somebody's a man or a woman isn't to give them StandOut or Strengthsfinder and say, ooh, which one are you? Because we know your gender. What we're trying to say is, regardless of your gender, what's unique about you and how do we help you manifest it and contribute it? So I just wanted to make, I don't think we got an actual question on that, but that's so important. If somebody says, oh, I took StandOut, I'm a provider, but I'm a guy, and I don't want to be provider, then the stereotyping doesn't lie in the tool, it lies in the person. In which case, we hope that the tool can change that person's mindset about what is a male quality versus a female quality. Sorry, I got some flies here. Yes, right? Yes, we need to move forward from these useless stereotypes. Yes, the stereotypes blind you. This whole thing is called I see you, I love you, because on the best team leaders are race blind, gender blind, age blind. They try to look to see, I see you, I love you, we need you, right? I see you, oh, because you're a African American woman who's 47 years old? No. That's missing the you bit, the uniqueness bit. And I don't want to be Pollyanna. I know we live in a society where we really do fall back on these stereotypes because they're easier and they help us have a shorthand, I suppose. But the shorthand it's a veil. It gets in the way. It's not revelatory. So I hope you use StandOut in that way. I'm creator stimulator. Are those male or female? Anyway. So I had a couple other questions here. Can you talk about use of reaction versus saying this in my feedback? Oh, this is from Who Is This Jose? Who is this Jose? I like that.
Who is the Jose?
Oh, who is the Jose?
That's the cutest handle.
Who is the Jose? Hi, Jose. Can you talk about the use of reaction versus saying this is my feedback? Yes. On a team, I know this is going to sound really weird to you. If you want to build a really, really good team, don't fill it with feedback. Don't fill it with feedback. I know we fall in love with feedback. Some of you might even be listening to this going,
this isn't just team leader, team member. This
is sort of everything. Yeah, team member to team member. Everything. Feedback is a funny word. Feedback has become, this is what I mean by feedback. Feedback is me telling you what you did well or what you didn't do well, and then being kind of candid about it, and then telling you what you should do differently. There is quite a lot in the world of teaching, in the world of coaching, in the world of work, where we say that that's an important and good thing to do. You need to learn how to be tough and candid and clear and fierce, but loving. But I need to tell you my feedback, because if I don't tell you that you're annoying, then who will? Okay, that's a slight exaggeration, but it's like if I don't tell you the truth, who will tell you the truth? So I need to give you feedback. And in fact, I need to learn how to give feedback. And then I need to learn how to get feedback. There's a lot of that, right? But here's the truth of the matter. I'm not the guardian of truth on who Michelle is. I can't tell Michelle who she is or what she's doing. The only thing that I'm a reliable reporter on is my own feelings. I can't tell Michelle whether she's strategic. I can't tell Michelle whether she's a good communicator. I can't tell Michelle whether she's a visionary. I can't reach inside her head and evaluate her on anything.
Strengthsfinder told me I was strategic. Here's a fly swatter in PC.
I've got a fly swatter now. That I got some feedback, and apparently I have a fly. I thought it was a spatula, actually.
No, it's a
fly swatter. Okay, so here's the point. The only thing that I'm a reliable reporter on is my own feelings, my own reactions. I can tell Michelle if I'm bored. I could say, hey, when you were speaking right then, I fell asleep, I was bored. Michelle then can't say, no, you weren't bored. She can just go, oh, okay. So I am a reliable reporter on my own feelings. I'm a reliable reporter on my own experience. I can tell you what my experience is. I feel like that was confusing. If I say to Michelle, I feel like that was confusing, Michelle can go, why, where did I lose you? But what she can't go is, no, you were not confused. Because I'm going to go, no, I was confused actually. So these are important. These are important things. Words matter. I am responsible for reporting to Michelle my reaction. I can tell her my reaction. If you're a team leader, tell people your reaction. You own your reaction. It isn't right, but it is your reaction. It is true. There's a difference between truth and right. I am true. If I say to Michelle, look, I was bored. Now, there could be a commentary on me. You shouldn't have been bored, Marcus, but I was. So the first thing is, I can tell Michelle my reaction. And the second thing, of course, is that the best thing to be reacting to is when it works. If you want to know as a team leader what's the best thing you can do, stop Michelle in her tracks and tell her when something that she did worked.
And as a team member.
And as a team member, yeah, if you see somebody on your team doing something that worked, lean in and go, that worked. And I don't mean to pat them on the head because we should catch people doing things right, that we should. I mean that curiosity about what works is the beginning of a conversation in which you say to a team member, how did you do that? What was going through your head when you did that? When you wrote that email, I don't know, man, but I lent into that email. That was so good. Seriously, when you do that, what happens is the person is so inside their own strengths, they don't even know when something really worked. I promise you the best thing that Michelle has ever brought to our relationship is when she stopped me and gone, do you know, when you do X, people lean in, or rather, I lean in. It's riveting, not because it's right, but because it's true. So as a team member or a team leader, you are the arbiter of what's true only about your own feelings. But if you can honor those feelings and relay them to a team member, particularly about what works, remember, the best way to get more of what works is to be curious about what works now. If you want more of what works in a team member, go, that worked for me. Let's navigate towards that. Change follows the focus of your attention. Change follows the focus of your attention, which is why, weirdly, negative feedback on a team is only useful insofar as it conveys to the person that you're not ignoring them. That is its only value. But if you give them negative feedback on what they're doing wrong, does that really tell them how to get closer to what's going to go right? No. That's like defining what should be in the soup by going through all the ingredients that shouldn't. If you keep telling someone, this shouldn't be in, this shouldn't be in, that shouldn't be in, this shouldn't be in, this shouldn't be in, do you think the person gets any closer to what the ingredients should be? No. You don't get any closer to excellence by defining failure. That's why, by the way, we always say that, I learned the most from failure. I learned the most when I studied failure. Well, no, but I'm not saying that you ignore failure. It's just that when somebody fails and struggles, what they're learning about is how they react to struggle. Well, that's kind of interesting. That's not nothing. But let's remember, when you really deep dive into failure, you don't get closer to your understanding of success. If you study divorce, if you really study divorced people, you find out that they argue a lot. Yes, write that down. That's a big surprise. But weirdly, when you study highly successful marriages and relationships and you count the number of fights, it's the same number of fights. There is no I promise you this is so, there is no statistically significant difference between the number of arguments in a rotten relationship and the number of arguments in a great relationship. There's no statistically significant difference. The difference in a great relationship, of course, is not the number of arguments. It's what goes on in the space between the arguments. What that means is if you study really rotten relationships and you come up with, oh my word, they argue all the time. Hey, if you want a great relationship, don't argue. That is terrible advice. It's like if you wanted to learn about joy, you don't study depression. I think we might have talked about this a bit before, but what it means in terms of reaction on a team is react to what works about a teammate. Why? Because the team, the turtles, the voice of the turtles, Diana Bernardo's turtles, is going to say to you what the team wants is for you to be a really curious audience about what works about the other people on your team. It's going to seem a bit weird for some of you to do this because we don't normally think as teammates that that's our responsibility. But it is our responsibility, just like it is in a family. See what works about what a person did and don't pat them on the head. Lean in. Be curious. Ask them what they were thinking about when they wrote it or said it. Ask them what was going through their mind. Ask them whether they knew that it was working. Ask them whether that was just a refinement on a pre-existing thing that they knew. There's all sorts of things that you can do as a team member to be a curious audience about the what worksness of a team of other team members.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Who's the Jose again? She wrote a line saying, you know, when you were talking about how to back in the feedback part.
Yeah.
This is how I felt when you did X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And I know that you've talked about that line. Like, I think telling people, you mentioned talking about your feelings, but is it that like when I felt this way when you did X?
So my show's asking about if you're on a team, I guess if you're in a relationship too, is it appropriate to use the language I felt X when you did Y? In terms of where we have a responsibility, we do have a responsibility to convey our truth, how we felt. And so yes, saying to someone, look, when you said that, I didn't follow it. When you said that, I felt this. When you said that, I felt that. That's entirely appropriate. The distinction, of course, is, and this is a longer conversation for all of us sitting over dinner one night, which I would love to do in Paris or Bologna or wherever we are, is we so often say, well, you made me feel that way. Yeah, no, nobody makes you feel anyway. Nobody made you feel. Like, if you want to get with the language, get that language out of your life. Nobody made you feel anything. You felt something. That's okay to report on. They didn't make you feel that way. I feel this way. When you try and present Michelle in such and such a way, I get confused. Now, she didn't make you confused, but you felt confused. It is entirely good, fair, honest, helpful to convey that to her. Because she doesn't know. She's just breathing. She's just doing her thing. So for you as a team leader, if you are one, don't tell people what... I'm going to give you some feedback. It's like, feedback is a gift. Yeah, feedback is a gift in the same way that an anvil is a gift from Roadrunner to Wile E. Coyote. We normally just survive the experience. But that doesn't mean as a team leader you shouldn't tell people how something made you feel. You can. You should. You should get pretty good at it. Because that way a person understands their impact on you. That's a super important distinction. Mm-hmm. You own your feelings. No one made you feel that way. And you can report on them. Would be glad to offer you that dinner in Bologna. I'm so taking you up on that. So taking. My son is texting me right here. Sorry about that. Yes, I statements, not you statements. Sorry, just gonna totally ignore my son here for a second. If you're on, Jack, I apologize. I statements. I feel this. I sense this.
You have 2 minutes.
I have 2 minutes. Okay. The other question I wanted to deal with, and if we got anything coming up through here, balance. A lot of you asked about balance. We, I guess, could talk about work-life balance on another day. Very quickly, do we need a balanced team? And then somebody else asked, well, what happens if we've got a whole bunch of equalizers on our team? Do we need to balance it out with more providers? The data on this is really interesting. It doesn't tell us that the best teams, by best I mean most productive, most engaged, less voluntary turnover, it doesn't say that the best teams are the most diverse teams in terms of these strengths. I know we always say that a best team is the more balanced team, but the data actually doesn't show that. What it shows is there's some teams that are really good because they're filled with advisors and they're led by an advisor. And then what do you get? Well, you might say that you get groupthink. Yeah, okay, but you also get speed of communication and trust. So the point isn't that you should have a perfectly balanced team. Here's the point. 2 things about a really great team. One, to go back to a previous question, we know what hill we're trying to take. That's what hill are we trying to take? What hill are we trying to take? Name that. And second is awareness. So knowing what the hill is and then awareness of each person. If you know you've got a team full of equalizers and you are one, then you will know at least how to honor, challenge, reward, involve those people on the team. So the point isn't balance. The point is clarity of hill and awareness.
Are you doing something next Friday?
Am I doing something next Friday? Yes. Oh, first of all, this will be recorded. It'll be on Stories for 24 hours. Okay. We might clip it up and send it out. But next week, I think we're going to do kids because so many of us have them. They're so interesting. They're full, whole humans. And so deep diving into I see you, I love you about my child. Oof, we've got so much to do on that front. In the meanwhile, have a happy weekend. I hope you stay super safe. Love ya.